Hello, sweet human, and welcome back to the Elements of Evolution podcast and YouTube channel. I'm smiling so big already because I have a very special human with me today. Someone who I met in person. I was able to hug her and squeeze her, and this was a few years ago. And now here I am witnessing this powerful, pleasure-filled woman on her evolutionary journey, and I'm seeing her shine so bright. I'm very excited to be sharing her with you and to be diving into the most beautiful, empowering conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Chenisse.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be here.
The feeling is mutual. And for anyone that is new to Shanissa's world, I want to offer a proper introduction to Shanissa's work, and we can pull apart her intro so that we can get into all the juicy details in her story. So, Chenisse Ouellette, am I saying that properly?
Yes, you got it.
Perfect. Little French name over here. She is an embodied evolution mentor and business consultant for Rich Revolutionaries, rebirthing reality through pleasure, power, and play. She guides wild visionary women and new earth CEOs to alchemize shadow into genius, to embody audacious self expression and build soul deep relationships that fuel regenerative impact through bespoke business models. Through emotional alchemy, somatic mastery, and unapologetic truth telling, Chenisse activates leaders into their authentic frequency of unconditional love, where wealth, legacy, and ecstatic aliveness become inevitable. Damn, girl. Ooh, we're gonna get into it. Okay, so I would love to let everyone know that you are a human. And before we go into all this incredibly juicy, exciting things, can you share a little bit about your origin story? What did it feel like young you operating in the world and retrospectively looking back, seeing what not being in alignment was like?
Yes, thank you for this portal into another time and space. So, as a child, I was always quite ahead of my time. And I was the girl that spent a lot of time alone or with adults or just frolicking in nature, kind of doing my own thing. And I remember being confused a lot of the time, confused at what peers my age were doing when they were being so like loud and like crazy and destructive. And I would more so prefer being like on the sidelines, kind of like observing from the like maybe like sitting under a tree or like holding the teacher's hand. And I would um like create these imaginary worlds in nature and entertain myself there for hours. And if anybody wanted to join me, they had to play by my rules. And so I was very bossy as a child, and I knew what I wanted. I mean, I wasn't afraid to claim it. Um, this was with like cousins and like neighborhood kids. And then when it came to adults like family and like outside of the school system, I was very sensitive all around, and the adults in my family, to no fault of their own, didn't really like pick up on that. And so I ended up actually like internalizing a lot of dysfunctional dynamics and like chaos from the environment and just again like detaching myself but always like observing from the sidelines of like, okay, what's actually going on here? Like, what is happening in these relationship dynamics? And like, what are these people doing? So there was a lot of that like contemplative, like edge. And I actually want to drop you into a story to kind of like put a bow on on that. Um, so my father at one point was clear cutting a plot of land. And it was common for when he was doing work, like he worked with heavy machinery and then also transportation, that my mom and I would just kind of go to the job site and hang out if it was like a weekend type of deal. And I remember being distraught and saying, no, you can't do that. You can't cut down the trees. There won't be any trees left if you cut them all. And being so like connected to nature in that way and being like very like fired up about what I believed in. So that gives you, I feel, a good snapshot of what it was like when I was a younger human.
Thank you for sharing. It's so interesting that childhood came in right away. And looking at your chart, I won't pull it up for the visual for the rest of the world to see because we'll be sharing this on YouTube, but you've got your fourth house ruled by the archetype of Aquarius. And then on
Mhm.
top of that, the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, is actually in the fourth house where it is very comfortable with this Aquarian energy, right? So to pull
Mhm.
that apart a little bit, it speaks to this parallel story, the human experience that you're sharing, because Aquarius is ahead of its time. It's future
Mm.
oriented. And Uranus is associated with the higher mind, with the higher self coming in with epiphany and knowing. And it is also this energy that's slightly detached. It does observe, and it's not this emotional desire to connect and belong so much because there
Mm.
is that objectivity that allows for authenticity because so
Mm.
many of us experience more of an emotional reactive nature, especially as children, because it's human nature to want to belong when there's that emotional attachment. But for you, you've had this really strong operation since childhood of, I'm actually quite happy living in my fantasy world. Uranus is really close to Neptune, the dreamer, the visionary, the one that's a little bit, it can create confusion. But to play in your own world, to be in relationship with Mother Nature, to observe and to practice being who you are is incredible. And then also, Aquarius is the water bearer. So you can think about it like life experience washing into you and then from you. But as a child, you don't know what to do with the energy that's coming in. So this piece around internalizing the chaos, it was like, I don't know how to find the tap to let that out yet or to alchemize it yet. So no wonder it was all just coming into your vessel and then being held there. And all of this energy is directly opposed from your sun at the very top of your chart in the 10th house. And that's identity. So when you're like, I don't really know who I was growing up, I was just sort of, I was this being that came to planet Earth to observe and look and wonder what the fuck everyone's doing and then figure myself out from there. I'm curious if anything comes up when you hear that or what the segue into adolescence was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels validating in a sense to hear that like this was the path that I chose at a soul level and that I've honored that despite whatever social pressures exist. And that is the segue into adolescence when our social needs for belonging get highlighted so much. And I remember as I started to go through that transition from like elementary to middle school, I like made a pact with myself. I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna make friends. Like I'm gonna do it. Like, and I did it in this like kind of strange sense of I would observe like how people were interacting. I'm like, all right, like I've got it. I've got the script. I can go in and like do it like they are and make friends. And yeah, I had a lot of like interpersonal conflict with my peers where I would just kind of, be myself and people didn't like that. And so eventually I kind of started to take on more of this shell and like emotional detachment and like masking to be more liked by peers. Ooh, there's a little of sadness coming up as I say that. And I did really lose myself for quite a few years between like adolescence and early adulthood. Like it because my safe place was really at school. Like with teachers, I knew that I could like really excel in school, and my favorite thing was to do really well in school. Like I think I graduated high school with like a 98 cumulative average, and um that was like really where I channeled my hyper focus because there was just all this chaos going on elsewhere. And then when that chapter of life ended, I was like, oh my goodness, now what? I always knew that I wanted to leave my home province. I grew up in the Maritimes in a small province called New Brunswick. And so when I graduated, I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know that I want to explore what else is out there.
Hmm. Okay,
Mhm.
so beautiful. And again, speaks to that fourth house. The very bottom of the chart, the fourth house represents the deepest parts of self that no one else will see. It represents roots, home, ancestry, and it's almost
Mhm.
like this alien vibe. Like you come in and you're like, "Do I even belong here? Like, why did I choose to have a whole life as a human? Like, what's going on?" And when you say you showed up and you're like, hey, I've got the mask, I've got the script, I can go in and do this, that just absolutely resonates with what your chart's saying. And then also this part of really being embracing the intellectual in you, and that is absolutely Aquarius. The other thing I want to point out though is like, ooh, the part of the heart that comes online when you're like, ooh, retelling this you feel it. I think that there is something so incredibly badass when I see this thing in a chart. You've
Mhm.
got Chiron, the wounded healer, not a small thing in our lives. I think that this is related to often how you might have passed in a
Mhm.
past life or in a parallel life, if you will. So this is a wound that we come in to this life with that is not insignificant. And it's with us our entire lives. And as Rumi says, the wound is the place where the light enters you. For you, this energy is in the sign of the other, of
Mhm.
relating. And it's also in the area of your life that has to do with the collective. It's in the 12th house. It's in the etheric house, the collective, belonging. So there might be something around like not feeling like you fit in. But what's so badass about this is your North Node is there, your karmic
Mhm.
invitation to lean in. So you're this Scorpio rising, this soul that is here to embrace the taboo, the truth, authenticity, your personal power. And your soul's like, oh, the deepest, darkest wound, like let's pour salt in it. Let's really go in. Let's alchemize. Let's face
Pretty
what's
kinky, isn't it?
yeah. So like you're walking this really bold, pretty badass path of like going into the wound and bringing greater light there. So it's,
Mhm.
and like, thank God you didn't fit in with like little Susie playing Dixie parties, like you weren't meant to ever be comfortable in what
Mm.
was, quote, normal. And
Mm.
now we get to like unpack what you're doing with your not normalness in the best freaking way. Um, so I would love to hear from you if there's one point, and I have a feeling that it's either like Saturn return or post Saturn return. And I always describe Saturn return like the part of our life where the pen is really handed to us and we start writing our own
Mm.
story. And it is like when you became sovereign and you realize that you are the creator of your own life. Does a moment or a particular time in life pop up for you?
Right now, baby. Like I'm in the middle of my Saturn return. You're witnessing it unfolding.
Oh,
And
okay.
then you talked about the like the taboo and relating to the collective. And as I've been leaning more and more into that, the more I feel my personal power come online. And one of my mentors, Shoshana Raven, always says that taboos are here to keep us misinformed and disempowered. And the more that we're able to embrace what I talk about a lot in my world, is this erotic shadow of where our desires are kind of in this shadow content of taboo because we've been told that it's too much or it's not to talk about that. That's actually like the greatest source of our power when we're really owning and leaning into the embodiment of those desires as our driving force and our creative potential. And an archetype I like to play with is the life alchemist of taking all of that content from those years of not belonging, from the big ruptures, and actually churning the emotional content from that into this like golden radiance of visibility and of impact that gets to ripple through the collective and literally rewrite the script that was being masked before in such a bold, audacious, like fun, sexy way.
Ooh, okay. I get so excited listening to you speak because I'm like, oh, you're living the fuck out of your chart right now. Like, okay, so
Mhm.
Saturn return. Saturn is in your fifth house of the day-to-day routines, rituals, how you show up, and also work, like how you're here to serve on a regular daily basis, ruled by the archetype of Aries. And Aries is passion, it is fire. Aries is about this primal body-based knowing, our internal compass. Then you bring in the energy of like pleasure and tapping into your body's wisdom in a somatic way on a day-to-day basis. Combine that with your Scorpio soul that's like, let's go to the dark places. Like, yes, all in the name of personal power, right? And then this anchored with this like authentic, there's no way I'm conforming energy of your deepest self, the Aquarian. Like, ooh, I would love to talk more about the ways in which you're serving. Like, let's bring pleasure into the conversation because this is a really big part of it. How is pleasure synonymous with alignment?
Mm. So I'm gonna take it in a few different touch points here. The first one I want to bring about is business. And I've been bringing forward this theme of New Earth business. And really, the foundation of that is relationships first business, where people and actually building genuine connection and opening our hearts to explore how we can serve that genuine connection is inherently so pleasurable, right? When we think of like traditional business, it's like, okay, profit margins, like push energy, like digging into pain points in marketing. And like, I went to business school to learn through contrast. And it has been such a pleasure to kind of throw the basic business playbook out the window and lean into building these relationships that do have that erotic charge of passion and of like full body aliveness and sensuality and like flirtation and seduction and sales, being a service, right? And we're honoring these reciprocal loops of energy that flow through us when we're moving from our soul mission through the vehicle of our business to create these movements that end up being the legacy that we leave behind. And yes, so you could see like I'm like flushed in my face. I'm so turned on by talking about this. And so relationships, foundation of business, but then also looking at all of our relationships, extending into the whole ecosystem of our life. And from that place, like how can we actually turn up the dial on the pleasure to creatively rewrite the patterns with which we relate to everything, right? To ourselves, to our partners, to our families, to our friends, and actually choose to acknowledge when there's like a stickiness, like a contraction, like a, oh, this is a conditioned way of being from culture, society, family that doesn't actually feel authentic to my soul expression. And when I can recognize that from this embodied place of, oh, this is like shifting my frequency out of alignment, then we get to choose the pleasure way and create a whole different energetic agreement that actually is honoring this original template that um, our souls came into this life. And, if you look at babies or animals, they're having so much fun and living up in the most pleasurable ways that they know how, because that is the way that creation actually wants to express itself beyond the constraints of the systems and structures that have been like superimposed on that organic template.
There's so much yumminess in everything that you just shared. And I think this idea of the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, or how we relate to
Mm.
ourselves is how we relate to the world around us and to other people. Sometimes, if that's like a new concept for people, they might be like, no, it's not. I'm like this at work and I'm like this with. So when we bring it to this place of operating from like energy and subtleness, and we draw it back
Mhm.
to that. Can you share maybe a little bit more about the truth of how we do one thing is how we do everything? Maybe with an example, or make it tangible for
Yeah,
people who are new to this work?
absolutely. So I love the example that you brought forward of like, okay, I'm like this with my family, I'm like this with my friends, I'm like this at work. Well, that's actually living in this like state of compartmentalization. And we have these different like parts of ourselves that are actually like existing in like identities that aren't communicating with each other. There isn't this like integration. And so what I'm proposing here is to someone who is used to living in that like compartmentalized way where, you're not in your sensual pleasure around your kids because that's not what mothers do. And you're not in your pleasure at work because you're there for business. And you're not talking about like your soul awakening spiritual downloads that happened in your meditation practice with your family because like they don't want to hear about that. And so when we are choosing to actually integrate all of these different aspects of ourselves and allow for the multiplicity of those different parts in our multidimensionality to be more of a fluid experience, then the barriers between those different roles that we can play as mother, daughter, CEO, all the other things that I named, get to have more of this like intimacy with each other. And so it's more connectedness, interconnectedness, and less separation.
Yes, 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 yes. This is so, I'm like, oh, I could talk to you all day long. I would love to talk about pissing people off or rubbing people the wrong way, or like what has been your experience of realizing like this part of unbecoming and how a no can be really valuable for us. Like knowing that someone's not really for you, or knowing that someone's not a safe space to be the whole you, the integrated you,
Mhm. Mhm.
and not making yourself wrong, but
Mhm.
realizing that you deserve to have an external reality that feels good
Mhm.
for you, and to
Mhm.
stop feeling a chameleon. Because as the Aquarian, the water bearer, you move through life energetically sussing people out, and then having this Scorpio rising, like you're a very permeable being. I imagine
Mhm.
that you adapted and played the part so fucking well, you convinced even yourself. So, can we talk about changing your permeability to be more of who you are and let that be an outward moving energy rather than taking
Mhm.
in the world and adapting before moving?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think the way that we can like name this transformation, and you named the like before of the chameleon, and then on the other side it becomes the shapeshifter. I get to shift my shape depending on the context that I'm in for a specific intention. And when I am in a context, an environment where I feel like I'm constantly like pissing people off and receiving that like projection that you can't say that, you can't be that way, or just not having an openness of mind and heart to receive the energetic transmission that is mine to share. Um, I have really like taken that in and like dissected it and looked at it from all of the different angles and tuned into, okay, well, if I'm here, there's a reason I'm here. And so what am I meant to learn here? What pattern is here for me to see a reflection of a place where I want to make a shift, where I want to incarnate differently, where I want to maybe like grow into or let go of. And I have a tendency, and I feel like you might be on the same page with me, when I have conducted my analysis and I've come to my conclusion and I'm ready to make my leap into my evolved identity, I just go. Like like I was saying, when I graduated high school, I moved to another province where I didn't know anybody and just reinvented myself, took on a whole new identity. I did the same thing after I graduated university. I moved to another province again. No one I knew there, a whole new identity. I lived in Costa Rica for a year. I tried on the whole like hippie backpacker lifestyle there. And then I was in Western Canada where we met. I was living in Squamish at the time. And I know that my time is up when like I cannot, I cannot, will not wear the mask anymore. And then people are just getting really pissed off and like triggered. And I'm like, look, okay, well, it's time. It's clear that it's time for me to move on. So I'm gonna do that. And there's always this like soul calling and that knowing of like, okay, this is gonna be the next place that I go to. It's just about like how long and how uncomfortable are you willing to get while you allow the architecture of your life to reflect that inner calling.
Mm, there's so much I want to pull apart here, but I really do believe that energy has place, and that allowing ourselves to follow the intuitive call to go somewhere else. And that's sort of
Mhm.
what I'm hearing from you. It's always this like pull, call, listening to go to Squamish or to
Mhm.
go to Costa Rica or wherever it is that you're going. Also how I operate. Most of my like it's not a plan that comes from the intellect. It's coming from
Mhm.
the inside, but I think that there's this quality of almost like the walking escalator at the airport that like hyper speeds your evolution when you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable and go somewhere new and figure out like who you are in this new energy in this new space, and it's a completely different experience. I'm, for example, in Lombok, Indonesia right now, and my natal chart has 180-degree change. I'm experiencing what it's like to live as a Capricorn rising right now. And it's
Ooh.
pretty cool. So everywhere that you've gone with these leaps, it's like, and then without getting into like the nerdiness of astrocartography, you could be living on a Chiron line, you could be living on a Mercury line, and all of a sudden you're inspired to write, or you're living on a
Mhm.
line that is all about sensuality and sexuality. And that's where you and your partner explore different things, or who knows, you do it with yourself. Like it's just, there's something really cool that propels our evolution in like a hyperspeed direction when we're willing to put ourselves in these different situations.
Mhm. There's a point I want to like pick up there. You said like, are you willing to allow yourself to be uncomfortable, like by completely uprooting, going to a new place? And in my experience, there is that like obviously that discomfort of the new, but the discomfort in being in a place that I've outgrown far, far exceeds the discomfort of being in the new. And I actually like quite find it like thrilling and exciting and like I love the whole like death rebirth cycle of, usually when I move to a new place, I don't bring very many of my belongings. So it's actually a big, big shedding of all of the things that I was like accumulating and identifying with, including like friendships, jobs, personal belongings, clothes hold a lot of energy and identity as well. And I do want to get into the nerdiness of astrocartography if we can just a little bit. It's so, so potent. Like I had I can't exactly remember and maybe you'll be able to fill in my blanks here, the planet lines that I was on, but the line that I was on where I grew up was like you're gonna have a lot of chaos with your family here, where I chose to be birthed. And then when I was in Costa Rica, I was on a Pluto line and like some intense, intense, intense shadow, like beyond the depths of the unconscious, like came through for me there. And now, I think I might be on a Venus line, but essentially like the theme of where I am now is something that was kind of like a hobby or like a side hustle becomes a serious business. And that is the process that I'm undergoing. And it was intentional to move here at this time in my business. So I love to play with that and actually match the soul pull with the astrocartography for like different seasons of my life because there are different areas in the world that I feel that pull to. And when I'm ready for that next evolution, I'll be like, all right, well, what's the intention of this chapter and how can I like match the soul pull to the intention with the astrocartography?
You are speaking right to my heart and all the excitement that it's expanding in my belly right now. And it's absolutely something I want to study more. And of course, it's a field that you could study your whole life and keep learning. But it really does sound to me like where you grew up was maybe close to like shock value Uranian line, like kind of sudden, almost abrupt realizations, or like you're going along and all of a sudden like, whoa, I don't belong here, or whoa, this is chaotic. It feels like a little bit of electricity almost.
Mhm.
Um, and then to be on a Venus line and creating this. Like Venus is a different archetype than the moon. We think about the feminine, and often we immediately gravitate to this archetype of the mother, fertility, nurturing, loving. And we don't, in overculture, have a really healthy example of Venus because in movies, in books, in what we see on the grand stage of life, we get, the feminine moon that is typical, or we get these examples of women in masculine energy, like the spy on the movie or the assassin on the movie, or the
Mhm.
manipulative siren that fucks around with men's hearts to get what she wants and this sort of thing. But like Venus is not any of that shit. Venus is actually what you're doing right now, which is I'm going to know myself. Like I can't even talk about Venus without my body posture changing. Like I know
Mhm.
myself so well. I know when to rest and listen. I know when to receive. I know when to act. So Venus is not lazy. She's not waiting for someone else to do it for her. She's
Mhm.
waiting for aligned action. She's trusting, and she operates, I think, first and foremost from this place of deep self-worth and
Yeah.
pleasure. And why the fuck would you entertain anything that doesn't feel good? Like that's her. Like,
Yes.
she's got a little bit of sass that is, I don't even know
Mhm.
if we have a word in English that would really describe her, but she's this archetype of true self-worth. And you're doing this work for yourself, rebirthing yourself as this rich revolutionary throughout your Saturn return, and then also sharing this work with all of the lives that you're touching. Like it's so cool
Mhm.
to see, to witness,
Mhm.
and for you to say that you're on a Venus line. It makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, when I think of Venus, I think of like she's connected to her womb, right? She's not operating from up here. There's this deep rootedness in the pelvic bowl of like that sacral response of like yes and no beyond any type of thought process.
And you dance quite a bit, right? Like I see your
Oh, that's
stories and
amazing. Yes.
like even
Yes,
when
I
we
love
get on a call when something's yummy, I just see the movement in you.
even
Mhm.
when I'm enjoying my food, like I'm dancing, or like if I am kind of scattered in my ideas or um, want like a reset mid-work, like I get up and dance, and I'm at the point now where music kind of just like channels into my mind, and I'll just start moving and grooving wherever I am, like in the middle of the street, at the gym, the grocery store, I don't care.
Yes. Okay. I would love if you're comfortable getting a little bit like vulnerable here. Um, can you share a little bit about your journey of creating deeper and deeper connection to your body? Because in my experience, my young life, I've told this story on the podcast before, so I won't go too into it, but my young life was very much in the intellectual masculine realm, completely disconnected. Didn't orgasm until I was like 25. Very disconnected from like body, pussy, all of it. Talk about constriction of throat, like open
Mhm.
throat, open pussy, open channel. Can we go there?
Absolutely. Yes, please, let's go here. Oh my gosh. This has been blasted open for me recently. I saw Mama Gina live in Denver at Living Rave Live. And like she, for those who don't know, is like she wrote a book called Pussy a Reclamation. And she's all about this, like really rooting into our pussy power as the source of our most regenerative and like delicious energy that we can tune into. And for me, hmm. So I've actually uncovered this like inciting incident recently where during COVID, I was living in Toronto. I'd been laid off as a flight attendant. And at the time, I was deeply lost and disconnected in like the world of like partying, drugs, and alcohol. And during the lockdowns, I started to see myself in this different light of like, oh, like I'm actually drinking to the point of blacking out by myself. Like this is not who I am. Like I said, I was very intellectually driven and like perceptive and wise, and then I just really numbed myself for so long. Um, and I remember speaking to a friend at one point during that time. I was like, I don't know like what's gonna happen, but I feel like everything's about to change in my life. And that was the first moment that I had like a conscious connection to this like higher self or like intuitive voice. And not too long after, I made the executive decision to stop taking birth control pills. And this was a massive, massive, massive catalyst to a spiritual awakening, to not have this like hormone disruptor in my body just like exploded my consciousness. And I actually like shifted my whole reality around and started really, really pouring into caring for my health and well-being, like exercising, practicing yoga, meditating, seeing a therapist that I like literally bawled my eyes out every call for years. And started reconnecting with nature. And as many of us did during that time, I had a friend, a male friend, that I was like, all right, well, it's you and me, buddy. Like we're doing this thing. And so I had what a lot of people were calling a quarantine. And so he was the one person that I was like breaking the lockdown rules with. And we just like really dove into exploring our bodies together and like really unlocking this like sensual, like pleasure and orgasmic energy that like I didn't know my body could do those things at all. And like there was the definitely like the sexuality side of it. But then on the like energetic and more sensuality side, I remember I was practicing just like flooding my body with conscious awareness and like connecting with that inner body. Um, and I remember like the sensations that, and it's so familiar to me now, it's just like such contrast of feeling these like this flow of energy inside of my body through my hands, through my legs, and um, lighting up in my womb space. And it's like, wow, this is incredible. And I hadn't quite like learned how to really like harness that and sustain it, but I was getting glimpses. And it actually came to a point where with this partner, I noticed that I was in this pattern of like, wait, I'm now taking on this personality that isn't me. And okay, so if this isn't me, who is this? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the subconscious projection of like who you want to be. And like unconsciously, I'm embodying that in this like people-pleasing dynamic that was like all beneath the surface until I shined my consciousness there. And I brought this forward to him in real time and was able to practice that like more conscious relating and communicating, and then like really rooting into my womb and pussy power to be like, no, like you do not get access to me. Like this is over. I'm actually moving. And he was like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I can do whatever I want. And it was really this time of all of these different aspects of just like lighting up like all of my energy centers all at once.
Incredible, incredible. I have, like, in my natal chart, I've got Chiron in the first house of self and body. So
Mm,
anytime that someone shares with me their story of connecting to body, I just feel so like honored and privileged to hear. So your physical vessel being this gateway to these other parts of self that are more subtle, higher self, energetic self. It's just such an honor to hear, and it makes me excited. And I hope that other listeners, if this is not an experience that you've had yet, if you're like, what is she talking about? Attuning to energy in her body. I just want listeners to know that this is so possible. Think about it like this. And you, being the intellectual woman that you are, Chenisse, I think you'll like this too. But we have cells in our body that you can think of like grid or place cells, grid and place cells. And it's essentially like the mental distribution or mental real estate that's distributed around our body in a very unconscious way. So if you think about it like that, we can kind of be all Mickey Mouse walking around with so much unconscious awareness in our hands. But with practice, we can actually inhabit more and more and more of these incredible vessels that we live in, including, if you are someone who's like, I really just want my breasts to be more sensitive. I would like them to be more attuned to the massage from myself or my partner, or I've never
Mhm.
orgasmed. I would like my pussy to be more sensitive and to be able to receive pleasure that's maybe not from a vibrator or a battery operated toy, and this comes with, like, I should preface this by saying, like, there is no shame. You are at where you're at, and that is
Mhm.
okay. Everything gets to be, there's nothing good, bad, ugly. It just is. But knowing
Mhm.
that there's this possibility to literally feel more alive in everything you already have is so powerful and empowering. So, thank you so
Mhm.
much. I'm not shocked at all that you're sharing pleasure and sensuality as part of your life path and mission, and it's infusing your business and infusing the business of your clients. I think it's so
Mhm.
incredible. Is there anything else you want to add to that after my little nerdy take on it?
I love your little nerdy take. Um, yeah, like I think, not I think, I know, and what I've experienced is that it's self-compounding too. The more that we are attuning to our senses, the more sensitive we get, like where we put our attention, energy continues to flow. And so like now where I'm at, like I've like had orgasms like just from nipple stimulation or like no stimulation, just energetic orgasms. I was actually on a call last month, and there's a woman in my mastermind group who's a pleasure priestess, and she was leading a practice, and I was like having energetic orgasms like sitting here on the call. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And like if you would have told me that when I was in my like numbing party girl days, she would have like been like, you're an like insane person. Like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
Um, and so, and like it really is, there's so much range and spectrum, and there's no like you said, there's no good or bad. It's just like we get to explore these incredible bodies through the senses that we have, and just like get curious and be playful with it, and with yourself too, right? Like a lot of my development of my sensuality, of my sexuality, has been through self-pleasure, and that is such a portal to connecting with the body. It's like that, and it can be sexual, it can be like touching yourself, but even just a practice like really like touching yourself like sensually, and like having this like soft touch, your hands, and that tactile um like receptivity is going to build this body awareness and connection and sensitivity as well. And so there's different like access points depending on where you're at.
Okay, I would love to talk about this being the bridge between channel and business. But before we go there, I just want to pull it back even more and speak into the human being that currently has a relationship with their physical vessel that is really not loving. And we don't need to say a whole lot about this other than that, like, my hope, and I have been there. I've operated from a place of punishment, from a place of top down, my body should be this way. There was no bi-directional conversation, no deep listening. So I'm just really honoring, dear listener, wherever you're at with your relationship to your vessel, and you deserve so, so much love. And the tactile self-love that Chenisse is talking about right now could literally be as simple as a self-massage, or if
Mhm.
you feel bold and brave, standing in front of the mirror and like looking yourself in the eyes and looking at your own body and seeing what stories are coming
Mhm.
up as you're witnessing yourself, and ask yourself, like, where are these stories actually coming from, and who really benefits from these stories? Because your
Mhm.
highest, most empowered, pleasure filled life, your higher self at source, like, it comes back to this universal truth that, like, source wants you to be in pleasure. It wants you to be
Yeah.
happy?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that like who is it that says this? Sahara Rose says that like God is the orgasmic state. Like that is like God moving through your body. And depending on your like religious programming, that can be very triggering for some people to hear. And like God and orgasms like don't go together. It's an invitation to perceive things differently. And I want to bring that into the mirror work as well. That's been such a potent like practice along my journey too. And when we're looking in the mirror, like rather than looking for like, okay, what are the stories here or like what are the imperfections here? It's like, can we actually just flip the script there and look for like what can I adore here? What can I appreciate here? What do I love here? And start looking for different things in the mirror. And then you'll just start noticing those things more often, not only in yourself, but in the world around you. And suddenly, everything transforms into a more loving, beautiful place.
And you said it yourself already, like where your attention goes, your energy flows, what you focus on expands. And when you do start finding these pieces of yourself that you love, that's going to continuously expand, which I think is such a beautiful practice. And now I want to just ask if there's anything else you want to drop here for listeners about pleasure being this bridge to a self-led business.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes. Okay. So think about either as an entrepreneur or as a um, employee, like if you work from home or if you have a relationship with like going to your laptop and to do work. How long or how intentional is the space between you opening your eyes in the morning and you sitting down behind the laptop? And how are you using that time? Because no matter who you are, what's going on in your reality, if you have kids, if you don't have kids, if you have a partner or not, if like you're on a time clock or you have your own time, there can always be a pleasure practice that is infused from the waking point to the working point. And I like to call this foreplaying your creativity. So that we're actually activating this pleasure system, which is a whole like biochemical hormonal feedback loop in our bodies that is going to drastically shift the process and the outcome of what we're sitting down to create in our businesses. And so it can be as simple as putting on a song and dancing and like getting into the hips, getting into the pelvic pole, really like drawing the energy down into the thighs and like activating that primal power and drawing up the earth energy into the sacral center, that place of creativity, and like really turning yourself on. Like, are you flush? Is your heart rate increasing? Like, are your nipples hard? And when you're coming into your creative process from there, like, you know, it can be dancing, it can be self-pleasure, it can be going on a walk and appreciating nature. Like, there's so many different avenues that we can take here and get to like play with and kind of keep it fresh and dynamic to be in an intentional state of pleasure as we go into creating in our business. And yeah, it just like there's, if we want to put it simply, there's the pressure pathway of like that whole chemical bio hormonal feedback mechanism. And like I could get really fucking nerdy here. Your girl like studied neuropsychology. Um, but there it's literally a whole different paradigm from pressure led business of, okay, I need to wake up, I need to slam my coffee, I got to get on my laptop, I got to create this thing, I got to make this post, I got to answer this email, I got to sell this amount of clients into this offer by this time and make this amount of money, or else XYZ things are going to happen and my life is going to explode. Like, what are you going to create from that state? You know, like surely there is not spaciousness for you to hear that inner voice of your higher self, of alignment, of source, of goddess, of God, or whatever you want to call it, your relationship to the like great beyond your singularity.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. What you call the pressure pathway, I've been calling in my own mind like urgency and deconditioning urgency. And I also just want to drop for listeners too, like we think about pleasure in such an extreme way, usually like orgasms or sugar. Like it could literally be the smell of the air, when you step outside and it's post rain, or, like sunlight on your skin, warm coffee in the mug that's heated, like how can we play with pleasure in more subtle, quiet ways? Because it really exists all the time. And when you start to live into this question of like, how much pleasure am I really receiving? Then
Hmm.
hopefully you start receiving more and more. But if you do have the time and space and you want to nerd out a little bit about the neuroscience behind that urgent pressure pathway that so many of us are conditioned to live in, and I think this is hugely related to consumerism and all the things. But do you want to share a little bit for people, for the woman that is both the mystic and the science nerd?
Huh? Ooh. Okay. Ooh, you're like calling me to activate a whole different neural pathway that I haven't accessed in a while. So we have our HPA axis, which is our hypothalamus, adrenals, pituitary. Um, Wrong order, but regardless. And so there is certain neurotransmitters that release this pathway of hormones in the body. And so things like norepinephrine, noradrenaline, cortisol are going to create a stress response, which puts our nervous system into this fight or flight, even freeze when it gets to a certain point. So I'm not going to go too much into nervous system stuff because it's kind of same but different. But essentially, what happens in the body is that blood pressure increases, muscle tension increases, our focus narrows, and we're perspiring. Our prefrontal cortex like kind of goes offline, and we're just really like in this primitive brain region where our emotions are heightened because we are literally preparing to run away from a tiger. That is the signal that is in our body through those hormonal pathways. And when we go to the other side of the coin, when we're talking about the pleasure pathway, then the hormones of oxytocin, the love and bonding chemical, the um, vasopressin is like a relaxant. So our blood vessels are going to relax, allowing for blood flow to be more regulated, for our heart rate variability to be in a range of coherence, for our perception to actually open up so that we are able to um, be in that part of our prefrontal cortex of creative thinking and have access to the hypothalamus that actually is this like feminine part of the brain that is deeply, deeply rooted with coming up with the like embodied sense of creativity. And in that state, we're like, weaving baskets, we are tending to children, we are preparing meals. And so it is very starkly different realities that are activated through our bodies. And there is this perception because like we have our efferent and afferent neural pathways that are perceiving information from our body up to our brain and vice versa. And so it's literally coloring the reality that we are experiencing that is like this receiving and transmitting function through the nervous system, through this neurochemical pathway. And so it really it really is like very tangible. And it's not just this like frivolous, like we want to like have orgasms all day and not do any work. It's like, no, no, no. Like we get to work with pleasure. And okay, I went super, super nerdy and I want to bring some playfulness into it because
I just want to say
play,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for pulling back on those memories because I know it's like been a hot minute and that might not be, the conversation you're usually having, but thank you so much for illustrating that for listeners because I think
I
so
surprised
many of us,
myself.
yeah, and I do want to hear more about play too but I think there's something really important in not forgetting you're human when you're on the spiritual path. And so many of us do one or the other. And you've just created a bridge for listeners to really remember the way that you honor your physical vessel is so important on the journey of evolution and your spiritual path, keeping your channel clear and open, all of it. So thank you for going there. I know it's like hard to pull on those memories when it's not, always something that you're speaking of. But yes, let's dive into play. Tell me what you're gonna say.
Um, No, it was great. And I love that you prompted this because it is something that I have been like, okay, I have this like very intellectual piece, but like, how do I bring this into everything else I'm doing? And so I really appreciate that prompt. And like it flowed so smoothly. Like there wasn't a point where I was like, what was that thing? It was like all just came out as if like, you know, time wasn't linear. Um, play. Okay. I love to play, right? I have Leo sun, and it is just such like a like life philosophy, really, to allow ourselves to be silly. And in a moment that, could be super awkward, that could be super serious, that could be super rigid, when we're in an unfamiliar new environment, when we're coming up against these edges of conditioning, of frustration, when we bring in just a little playfulness, it activates that pleasure system.
Mm.
And like play can be, adding like a silly emoji to a message, Or it can be like, I've been loving sharing this example. There was a few months ago where I got into this rut of like watching like reality TV before bed, and I hadn't done that in so long. Like, I don't usually watch TV just because I prefer to like listen to things that are like enhancing my path versus like distracting. But anyways, when I came to the point of like, okay, this is enough, I deleted all the subscriptions. The way I like pattern interrupted that was through play. And I brought my partner in and I'm like, okay, we're playing animals tonight instead of watching TV. And we literally just like dropped into this ridiculous improv of really, really like embodying the animal's essence and going all out back and forth for like an hour. And it was so much fun. And like did not think about watching TV. Had such a better time playing in this ridiculous way. And those pathways for pattern interrupt are always available for us. And when we're thinking of shadow work, there can be this mainstream association of like, oh, it's so heavy and arduous, and I don't really want to do that, and like I don't want to look there, and it's I am the way I am, and like whatever people say. And it can be playful. It can be easy to bring in those like nuances of like, okay, what would a child do here? And pattern interrupt in that way. And then there are times for the deeper work, but I like to bring in that like dynamism of different approaches.
Yeah, okay. I think you are speaking into the side of the coin in regards to healing or evolution that so much of the world is missing. They're missing the half of the conversation that is about where your energy goes or where your focus goes, what you focus on expands. It's like you actually do need to bring in the light. You do need to bring in the play, the pleasure, the fun. Otherwise, shadow work is just like you're gonna find what you're looking for. If you're always looking for what's quote wrong, like you're probably going to find
Hmm.
it. So how about you start to play with this completely different side of the coin and start having a lot of fun, a lot of play. And it doesn't shock me at all with you saying like your Leo sun in play. And just, I know you know this, but like your Leo sun at the top, top, top of your chart, you are meant to be seen. It's in the house of career, of achievement. It's meant to be playful. It's meant to be pleasurable. It's so cool to witness you like operating in the world the way that you are. I know we could talk about so much more here, even in the last little bit of what you've said. I'm like, oh, got more questions, but I just want to honor your time and say thank you so much. Your everything, the codes of possibility that you are rippling out as you move is just so beautiful to receive and to be able to share you. Is there anything that you want to share with listeners? Your episode's gonna air pretty soon. So if you've got something going on now and you want to share, promote yourself, where can people find you? Like, do you want to share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find me is on Instagram at Evolve with Chenisse. My DMs are open. Come flirt with me. And if anything in here sparked curiosity, like I'd love to connect there. I don't know if this will be posted by Friday, but I do have a class coming up on Friday called Turn On Sales, and it's all about activating this pleasure pathway when we're in those like sticky parts of entrepreneurship, where maybe we're navigating a bottleneck and like restructuring how we're operating our business and sales aren't flowing as they used to. How do we move through that contraction with pleasure and bring in some juicy storytelling to actually make the flop, I'm putting up air quotes, an asset that gets to stack cash on repeat. So that's a class that's coming up in collaboration with Maria the Leader on Friday. But beyond that, I have my like kind of two main offers that are always on in this season of life. One being Audacious, which is a 3-week Telegram mentorship space where we really dive into all of the themes that I brought through here and alchemizing the erotic shadow where outcasted desires live into golden visibility so that your soulmate clients can find you the ones that are ready to buy now. And then my big baby, my year-long mentorship space is called Rebirth. And that one I like to frame as like, we're gonna go on a magic carpet ride. We
Mm.
don't know exactly where we're going to end up, but we are definitely going to see things from a higher perspective. And we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. So, that is a one-to-one journey to completely revamp your whole life ecosystem so that your business is actually set up in a way that is scalable for the massive soul mission that you're here to birth through it. We didn't really get into too much of my business nerd side, but that's another aspect that I am loving to play out recently, and it just feels like this like naughty revenge on all of the years that I was in business school and like, oh, I hate this. Like, I am not doing business for just money. Like, we love money. We can do incredible life-changing things with money, but I really love to create business from that relationship and pleasure pillar.
Ooh,
Mhm.
I love this naughty revenge part of you that's like, yes, let's play. I honestly believe that every piece of our experience as we move through life, even if it seems like a waste, it serves us somehow at some
Absolutely.
point. So it's like, why did
Yeah,
I go to business school? That's not all what I'm into. And you're like, oh, this is why. And I bet you there's so much wisdom from that time in your life that informs you, even
absolutely.
if it's a, I'm not going to do it this way.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There was so many years where I was like fighting against that era. And then whenever someone would bring a business conversation forward, I'd be like, oh, like I want to get in here. Like I'm so excited. I'd be like, oh, I don't like business. So it was really funny to like reconcile that piece. And like that's part of the work that we do too in Rebirth is alchemizing all of our life experiences to see them as happening for us. And like moving through the emotional layers to create the fuel source that allows our soul gifts to fully come online.
Okay, so you're touching on the air, the higher intellect, the shock value that you're meant to bring people with this Aquarius fourth house. You're touching on the taboo, the alchemy, the let's bring desire into it with your Scorpio rising, and then this passion, this play, having fuel, having energy, vitality in your life. Like you're touching on all these really beautiful parts of you and how you're using your own unique medicine to serve the world. And I see it in your own business as it continues to blow up. And I undoubtedly could see that for your clients too, and just breathe introducing themselves to business via the pleasure pathway rather than the pressure pathway, which I love. So I just thank you for everything that you're doing in the world, for the collective. You're incredible. Thank you for your time today. And I can't wait to share this, and we'll do it before Friday so people can catch your class.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. It is such a pleasure to get to connect and converse with you and to be seen and reflected by you. Like, wow, talk about pleasure. Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
pleasure is mine. Until next time.
Till next time.